Okay, back again with another episode of the GCN Tech Clinic where I try and solve your bike-related problems. So if you've got one, leave it for me down there in the comment section below or on all forms of social media using the hashtag AskGCNTech. Let's start then with Samuel, who says, "Hi guys, greetings from Bolivia." Nice place. Awesome show. Can I use the Cinelli Pista handlebars on my old road bicycle using a quill adapter? I use my bike for commuting and some 50k rides. Thanks a lot. Samuel, of course you can. Just make sure that that quill stem you've got fitted will accommodate those Cinelli Pista bars, because it's likely they've got a 31.8mm diameter of the handlebar. And a quill stem normally is 25.4 or 26 or 26.2 or 26.4. I can't really remember. Cinelli and stuff, they fiddled around a little bit with diameters around the late 80s, early 90s. Either way, it will fit. Just make sure your stem is compatible. If it's not, what you could do is get a quill to A head adapter, so that goes inside of a standard fork. Then you fit an A head stem onto it. Make sure, of course, it fits the 31.8 diameter, and then you'll be able to use them. I do like a pair of Pista bars. Right, next up is Stefan West, who says, "I've got a pair of Zip 303 NSW wheels. The front seems a little out of true. Can these, or any carbon wheel, be trued in the same way as my old alloy rims?" Stefan, that's right, buddy. You can true them up just like a normal wheel. The only thing really to be aware of here is that normally carbon wheels have got less spokes than a standard or bog standard wheel. So an old alloy rim, normally 32 spokes. So if one becomes slightly loose, it doesn't affect it quite as much. And personally, as a wheel builder, I find them, the old style wheels, a little bit easier to true up because you don't have to have quite as precise tension as on a low spoke count carbon wheel. But yeah, you can true it up exactly the same. Just make sure, like when you're truing up any wheel, if it's got a flat bladed spoke in there, hold it in place. Normally you get a little plastic tool to do that, so that when you're turning the nipple, it's only the nipple that's turning and the spoke is not twisting, because sometimes you can twist them and they can just become warped and eventually snap. Right, next up is Tom Denley, who says, "Hey John, help. I'm riding Vittoria's tan sidewall tyres. I'm sure you've ridden and cleaned a fair few pairs in your time." Cheeky. "Please can you tell me how to keep the sidewalls looking sweet?" Right, Tom, something I would try first of all is something called a magic eraser. It might be called something different wherever you're from. In the UK, that's what they're called. You pick them up in pound shops, so you probably get them in a dollar store if you're in the US. Essentially, it's a little white sponge, and you dip it in water, and then with some good old elbow grease, just try and remove that brake dust from the sidewall of the tyre. If that doesn't work, get a sponge and dip it in some car shampoo and try and rub it off with that too. Now, something you could do if you've got a brand new pair of tyres is to coat those sidewalls in something called Aquashore. This is what cyclocross riders do to actually try and protect the sidewalls from rotting, because when they can become wet, sometimes they can just rot away if they're a cotton carcass. But ultimately, don't go putting something like that on if your sidewalls are already dirty, because you're just going to trap the dirt in there. So hopefully a couple of those solutions will be okay for you, because tan sidewalls, they look good. Very good. Right, next up, Robert Picanic, who says, "I'm looking to upgrade my early 2000s Pinarello prints to a new Shimano 105 7000 group set, but I have an older style Shimano BB 5570 sealed bottom bracket. Is there a replacement for this bottom bracket that will suit the new systems?" Right, Robert, so you've got the old Octalink bottom bracket there, judging by those numbers you've given me. Not a problem for you, my friend. It's an Italian threaded bottom bracket in the bike. So I'm going to give you the part number that you need for that 105 7000 group set. It is, I'm going to have to read this off the screen, I'm afraid, ISM BB R60I. Now you do need that Italian threaded one, because a British thread is smaller and it's narrower and it's just not going to fit. So make sure you get that Italian one. Right, next up is Chris Jepson, and Chris says, "Hi John, cheap bike to superbike series is ace. Thank you very much, I really enjoyed that. Another one coming up soon, keep your eyes peeled. I'm inspired to do a similar project on an old copy K28 frame. Oh, mate might have one of them. I'm keeping 8-speed downtube shifters, but want to know, can I use my old 105 11-speed front and rear derailleur with this setup? Thanks, CJ. Right, nice question here. Yeah, if you're using those down tube shifters in friction mode, it's going to work absolutely fine. Use them in index mode, it's going to work fine too. Because ultimately, when you're using an 8-speed cassette at the rear, because that's what you're going to be doing with those 8-speed shifters, you're not asking those derailleurs to do such a complex gear shift, if you see what I mean, because with the 8-speed cassette in the rear end, the tolerances aren't as precise as if you're using 11-speed components. So you've got a little bit more room for error there with the indexing, so it's going to be absolutely fine. Right, next one is Jonathan Zappala, who says, which one lasts longer, a threaded Dura-Ace bottom bracket or a threaded Ultegra bottom bracket? Does Dura-Ace have stainless steel ball bearings? Right, lovely question, but you haven't ascertained or actually told me which specific model we're talking about here. So I can't give you the most definite answer, but generally, the difference between Dura-Ace and Ultegra tends to be aesthetics, and also material quality tends to be a little bit better with Dura-Ace. But ultimately, the ride quality is really, really close. Some of you will even remember when Si and Ollie did a blindfolded test of Dura-Ace and 105, they found it pretty hard to actually notice the difference. But I did read, actually, the latest iteration of Dura-Ace bottom bracket, they actually have a lower resistance seal in them. So you are probably going to get a slight improvement over an Ultegra one. Right, next up is Gary Johnston, who says, hi John, I've just bought myself a new bike, Ultegra Di2, 5236 and 1130. The gearing is ideal for about 90% of the riding I do. However, a few sportives coming up with gradients well over 20%. I know I won't be able to get over these hills with the current gearing. What's the simplest way to get an extra gear or two? Stick on a compact chain set of chain rings, or can I put a 32 tooth cassette on without changing to a longer cage length? Right, Gary, easiest thing you can do here, get yourself that cassette, so 1132 or 1232, whatever you want to put on there, and get yourself a derailleur hanger extender. Loads of you remember probably when I made a one by hack video on a bike of mine, I put one of those on there. It cost me about £2 from eBay. So depending on where you're from, £2, $2 is probably going to be about the same. Put that on there. Essentially, it means that the rear derailleur is moved downwards by about 2 centimeters roughly, and your current rear derailleur will almost definitely be able to accommodate that 32 tooth sprocket. You may be able to actually use your current mech with a 32 tooth sprocket, but I just wouldn't risk it, because if it gets trapped and caught underneath the cassette and it writes it off, well, you're going to be writing into me unhappy, aren't you? And I don't want that. I want a happy Gary Johnston. Right, final question then. Revolutronic. Hey John, I'm in desperate need of help. When I see something like this, Revolutronic, it fills me with like fear, but also a bit of excitement, because I never know what's coming up. For the first time in 30 years, I have a bike with a strip bottom bracket. Oh no, this is a nightmare. The left side, the plastic one, is basically gone. The right side isn't moving at all. How can I get rid of it without ruining the threads or the whole frame? Okay, the right hand side is good, like you say, so ignore that left hand side for the moment, because once we get to the right hand side, you'll be able to pick out the left hand side with, well, I don't know, you just be able to pick it out basically with some pliers or something like that, because those plastic cups, they do bend and break quite easily. So that's that bit covered off. Right hand side. What you're going to have to do is take the bike apart as much as possible, hopefully so you've just got the frame on its own. Spray it into the bottom bracket shell, something like Plus Gas, might be called something different where you're from, but essentially it's a releasing agent, like a penetrating fluid, that sort of thing. You could also try a well-known beverage. It's dark in colour, has bubbles in it, and has been known to remove rust as well. I'm not going to give it a shout out, but yeah, you could well use that because it does break down the rust. But then get yourself a big workbench, something like this, with a vise. Put a bottom bracket tool in the vise, get it nice and tight in there. Then put the frame down onto it, onto that right hand side. Then get a threaded bar, right, so a threaded rod, put it through, make it nice and tight so that when you're, essentially what you're going to do here is use the frame as a giant lever, and that is going to be your leverage to try and get the bottom bracket out of the bottom bracket shell. The reason you want to thread it in there with a rod, something like that, is so it doesn't slip off, because if you do that, you risk ruining the actual notches in the bottom bracket. I've done this before, and it's great pleasure when you remove it. Before you go ahead though and start like yanking it off, make sure that you are turning it in the correct way. Because ultimately you don't want to, well, just destroy it, do you? But anyway, that is going to be the best option there. If it's an old steel frame and you don't care about it that much, but well, we do care about our frames, you could apply some heat in there too, because that helps release it. Right, I hope I've been able to help answer your problem this week on the GCN Tech Clinic. Let me know though your problems down there in the comment section below, or like I said at the start, on all forms of social media using the hashtag AskGCNTech. Remember to like and share this video with your friends, and check out the GCN shop at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. And now for 2 more cracking videos, how about clicking just down here and just down here.